there, I'm Patty Bullard, owner and developer of the Wubbers jewelry making pliers. I'm here to introduce you to the square mandrel pliers from the Wubbers Designer Series. These pliers are made to make jewelry designing faster, easier, and much more fun. Not only that, you will find your creativity will begin to soar as you get acquainted with your new pliers. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to get started using these amazing pliers. Let's explore the different features of these wonderful pliers. The first thing you're going to notice is that the jaws are not tapered, and that's important because it will enable you to be able to make a square coil or a square tube. Also, you'll notice that our mandrels are attached to handles of pliers. And these handles are longer, they're padded, making them very comfortable. It's very easy to hold your work, and it's also very easy to move your work around so you have full visibility as you work on it. A big advantage of these pliers is that you can actually grip your metal or your wire as you bend it and shape it, and that makes it much easier to have control of what you're doing. And one of my very favorite features of these pliers is that you can actually use the jaw to support your work. As you say you want to crisp up the edges really well, you can take a rawhide mallet and tap, 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 or you can even add texture to a square tube without collapsing it by using the round end of your ball peen hammer and just tap it right on the jaw. These are the medium square designer mandrel pliers, and they are recommended for use with up to 14 gauge dead soft wire or 24 gauge dead soft sheet metal. This pair is the small square designer mandrel pliers, and they're recommended for use with up to 16 gauge dead soft wire and 24 gauge dead soft sheet metal. Until now, tapered mandrels were the tools used most often by jewelry makers to make square shapes. However, you're going to notice that this type of mandrel is hard to hold on to, and it's also uncomfortable to work with. Also, its tapered shape makes it really difficult to make a square coil. For this demonstration, you're going to learn how to use the square mandrel pliers to make a square coil. I'm going to use 16 gauge dead soft copper wire, and I'm going to hold my pliers with the small jaw on top, the larger jaw on bottom, because I'm actually, for this one demonstration, I'm going to wrap around the larger jaw. I place my wire into the jaws with the edge of the wire next to the edge of the jaw, and then I grip the wire and I begin to wrap the wire around the jaw. Now when I get to here, because the wire doesn't rotate, I need to open the jaw of the pliers, cross it over, and then close and grip again, and I can continue making my coil. Now once your coil has reached the desired number of wraps, I'm going to trim off any extra wire. I turn it down so that I'm not going to flip it up into my eyes and hurt myself. And then once I've done that, the other really neat thing about these pliers is, like I mentioned earlier, you can actually crisp up any corners by hammering right on the jaws of the pliers. Now that our coil is complete, I want to show you an easy way to cut this into jump rings. I like to use my Lindstrom shears. They're metal shears, and I've used them with wire that's up to 16 gauge. And I find it so much easier than trying to saw the jump rings or even cut them with flush cutters. All I do is I take the shears, I cut down the middle of a side because my jump ring is stronger, and I just place it and I slowly start to snip through each one. Sometimes at the end it goes faster. And then you'll see I have a number of jump rings that are all alike. Then all I have to do is take one of those jump rings, use 2 pair of Wubbers, and I treat it just like it's a round jump ring, and I go back and forth until I get it closed up perfectly. You can see I have a nice square jump ring. Before now, there has not been a practical way to create square tubes from sheet metal. With these pliers, we've opened up the design possibilities, giving you the creative edge to reinvent the way you make jewelry. Square tubes can be made using any of the jaws of the square mandrel pliers. I'm going to show you how to make one of these tubes, and I'm going to use the small mandrel pliers, but the larger jaw. I'm going to use a strip of 24 gauge copper sheet metal. It's about 1 inch wide, and it's rectangular shaped, and you'll notice that the corners are square. I place the metal into the jaws. Because I'm going to be wrapping around the larger jaw, I place the edge of the metal even with the larger jaw, and then I make my first bend. Now at this point, if I have any doubt that the bend is crisp enough, I can take my hammer and sharpen it up, because I want nice, clean 90-degree angles. Then I'm ready to make my second bend, and you can notice I just rotate the pliers. And if I'm thinking that I need to crisp that up, I can tap, tap, tap. Then I make my last bend. You can see I now have the beginnings of a nice square tube. The next thing I'm going to do is actually trim the metal. And again, I like to use my Lindstrom shears, and I trim it where there's a little bit of extra metal. And I'll show you what I mean. Once I've made the cut, you can see that there's a little extra metal that's going to stick out right here. And the reason I did that is because now when I go to fuse or solder it, it's going to make joining this together a lot easier. Then after I fuse or solder the piece of metal I'm using, then I will take my shears again, trim up really nice and tight where there's nothing sticking out. I'll take a file and file down the extra metal until you can no longer see the seam. And that's exactly how I made this tube bail here. Thank you for joining me. We've learned how to create square coils, jump rings, and tubes using the square mandrel pliers from the Wubbers Designer Series. These pliers have been specifically engineered to spark your creativity and to make it easier for you to craft your own unique designs. I'm sure you will enjoy using your Wubbers square mandrel pliers just as much as I do.